Welcome to Coffee with Karl, where thoughtful conversation meets strong coffee. I'm your host, Karl Meneghella, coming to you from Prayer Buddhist University here in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. This show is about ideas, big and small. Ideas to get you thinking. Hello, I'm your host, Karl Meneghella, and welcome to this episode of Coffee with Karl, where today we're going to talk about something that's deeply personal and really meaningful. It's the notion of balance. I'm very proud to introduce Tony Meneghella, coach, creator, consultant. Tony, welcome again.
Hi, Karl. Thanks to be here.
A pleasure, an absolute pleasure.
I'm really excited to talk about this framework, which I hope will help us to ask what's taking up space in our lives, what's missing, and what really matters now and for the future. Sometimes when we're feeling out of balance, it's not a problem, it's not a failure, it's feedback that we really need to listen to.
Okay, so where did this idea begin?
Well, actually this began with a conversation. A close friend of mine who, to all intents and purposes, had a very successful life, was feeling really burnt out and actually admitted to me he hated his job and was struggling even to get out of bed in the morning. We started to talk about that as he opened up. You know, I thought the first thing was to change his attitude about his job and talk to him about job as an enabler, not as just this obligation. His job was paying for all of those things that he valued, his family security, the education of his children, being able to travel regularly. So that change of attitude in his job, that helped. He was going to work with a better feeling about his job, but he was still feeling out of balance. As we talked more and more, we realised that there was just something going on that he couldn't find a way to articulate clearly. And I started thinking, how can we get a better handle on this?
So I'm guessing that's what led you to the four domains of me, we, work, play.
Absolutely. I knew we needed a simple way to find out what was making his life feel so overwhelming, but also to be able to categorise and then be able to assess value and priority on those things. And if we do that, we can also use a couple of lenses of acceptance and timeliness. Pretty quickly, I focused on a really basic mix of these four interdependent zones of me, we, work and play. And that's where the model began. And it's a way of naming, identifying what really matters to us now and for the future.
Okay, so could you walk us through these four domains in more detail?
Sure. So it's pretty simple, and we've tried to keep it simple. Me is all about my internal focus. It's about my growth, my investment in me, those things that I do for my identity and personal development. Okay. We is about our relationships, and it's about the people we surround ourselves with. It may or may not include family.
Right. Okay.
It's about our personal support networks. It's about our friends, our community. And the key theme for this is really about where there's mutual care, the people we care about and that care about us.
So your friends, your colleagues,
May or may
not be.
And again, your family may or may not be in who you consider to be we.
Okay, so that's the me and the we.
And the we. Work, pretty obviously, work is pay for effort, right? You do things that you get some reward for, some income, and I'll use that rather than reward, some income. You're doing an activity, you're making investments, you're doing all sorts of things about a return. Could even include hobbies that we might not be as active in that space if there wasn't some return for it.
Yep, I get that.
Work.
So we've got me, we, work.
And play. Play is where we find joy, where we find creativity. It's what, enlightens us and lightens our lives.
So if I'm feeling out of balance, I just can't put my finger on it. All right. So
yeah, this helps you locate the imbalance. But it's important to understand that imbalance is not necessarily a problem.
Hang on, sorry, what do you mean by that? Where imbalance is not necessarily a problem?
Okay, it may be a matter of the situation that you're in at the moment. And that's where we talk about acceptance of where things are. So for example, your play quadrant may be down. this particular period, this month, because you're starting a new business. You don't have a lot of time for play.
So you're saying because you're doing a whole lot of new work, maybe the play part is lower.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So similarly, your me quadrant, that may be down because you're spending time looking after a sick relative or doing other things. As long as this aligns with your values, that's acceptable.
Okay. So you've mentioned timeliness and you've just mentioned acceptability. So could you explain more about that?
Timeliness?
Timeliness in particular.
Sure. Timeliness is really interesting with this framework, that you can certainly look to the here and now, what's going on and occupying me here and now. You can also take a future view where you talk about what your ideal day, week, your life in the future might look like. How do I want to be occupied in the future? And when you do that, you can start to identify where there's gaps and look at real tactics to close those gaps or bridge those gaps. How do I change from this state to that state?
So you're sort of visioning, you're looking at what it could be.
Absolutely.
So what would a great week look like as opposed to where I am?
How could you live the week you want to live?
So you're saying it's not just where I am, it's where I want to go or where I want to be.
Certainly can be, yes, indeed.
So could you show me, where has this model already had some traction?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's still early days, but the responses so far have been encouraging. In corporate teams, for example, in Australia, a regional bank introduced Me, We, Work, Play in their workspaces. So they actually have notice boards where people can put up how they're feeling. They actually have these sessions where the staff update what's going on in their quadrants. Mm-hmm. Management can respond to that. They can see the teams feeling a little down in their we space. They're not doing enough collective activity. Mm-hmm. So they can create new teaming or development activities.
So it could be team building, it could be a staff lunch, it could be anything to try and get that we together.
Absolutely. Okay. Build up that domain, and you're not necessarily detracting from the others, and indeed you may be encouraging.
Right, okay.
Home life, most definitely. One of the key participants that I had in a coaching session, she actually did this mapping on a monthly basis with her partner. And over time, they could actually really dig into what was going on in their lives and start to focus on where what they were seeing was, as both of them, their work quadrants would increase, they recognised that the we quadrants almost directly were decreasing.
Right.
They weren't getting enough time. So looking at that, they started to really refocus on how they were spending their family time.
I must confess there's times where I could use something like that, because we all have troubles in our relationships at times. And not just whether it's a wife or a husband, but relationships at work or whatever. And it'd be nice to have those conversations where we can have a we conversation. Do you have any other... sorry.
I was just going to say something that for me, one of the most powerful stories that I have about using this framework, there was a couple that I was coaching and they were having some real problems in their relationship. Really not communicating very effectively. They were going off in lots of different directions. And so I asked them to try and do this mapping, this modelling, and they both took it away independently, mapped their current state and mapped their future state, where they would like to be. One of the first observations, which was really, really good and really powerful, their desired future states were actually really well aligned. The things that they thought would make an ideal future for both of them and for themselves was, really, really close together. So that's a great sign. But the here and now was just disconnected.
So hang on, so they both were in alignment as far as where they thought we would be.
Absolutely.
But the here and now.
Absolutely. And, it was really as fundamental as, the husband was completely occupied. His work domain was just overloaded. Mm. There was almost no me. We was limited and no play. Right? His wife was just full of we, doing things for other people. Right? Completely disconnected. They looked at that and worked out why. Some of it was situational. So when they looked at why are we doing that and what are our values and priorities, it was okay. It was actually aligned, and it was just something that they were going through. But they could find tactics to again bridge the gap for themselves and to come closer together. So, and that relationship's still going really strong.
I like this idea of tactics, or find some steps we can take. So to our audience, What are some steps you could take? Like, what's the first step? What's the thing you can do right now?
It's a simple model. It's designed to be simple. You don't need to go on a course. You don't need a book of instruction. Just take a good, honest look at what's occupying your time and think about it in the context of, what am I doing just for me? What am I doing for that group of people that I surround myself, for we? How am I occupied by work? And what do I do for play, for enjoyment? And then rate those quadrants, give them a score, 1 to 10, very bad to very good. However you can, subjectively have a look at it and say, yeah, I'm happy with this, I'm not happy with this. And think about what you would really like, what matters in your life.
So that's as simple as saying, in the me, I might feel at the moment it's a 3.
Yep.
In the we, I might feel it's a 4. In the work, I might feel like it's a 10, because I'm just so, it's focusing.
Overwhelmed.
And then on the play, I might feel like it's a 2.
Absolutely.
So that gives me at least a starting point.
Sure, but again, balance does not equal equality. Mm-hmm. I think this is one of the fundamental problems when people talk about work-life balance. They talk about, if I've got, it's the old 8-hour day, 8 hours of work and 8 hours of play and 8 hours of sleep. Balance equals equality. And that's not true, right? A 2 in your in your play space, a 10 in your workspace. Again, you're starting a new business. That's pretty standard. You're going to be occupied, but you want to.
Yes.
You want to do that. You're trying to achieve something.
So that's not a bad thing then.
Not
it's
a bad
part
thing.
of what you want.
So in that instance, with your values, your goals, your work-life balance, your life balance is actually pretty good.
Okay. So what happens if one quadrant is not numerically, but if I feel like, regardless of the number, I feel like this quadrant is suffering?
Yeah. Then number one, try to understand why, and the more information you can provide on what is occupying in that quadrant, the better off you'll be, because then you can really start to prioritise those activities. What's actually important that's going to give me an outcome that benefits my life?
I like that, because you need a priority. So what are some things I can do where the outcome will benefit? Okay.
Absolutely. And again, that's that whole idea about, this might feel like the numbers aren't equal, not balanced, but the situation I find myself in gives me balance for what I want to achieve.
Right. Okay. That's great for me or I. What about, say, teams, for example?
Well, again, look, as a consultant, I've had an opportunity to employ this framework in a number of different organisations, state government bodies, federal government bodies, and private enterprise. And when you're teaming, you can actually take a different perspective. Companies will often run check-in sessions, and they'll run pulse surveys, and they'll do all this stuff where individuals go away, they fill out a survey, they have individual meetings, and it's just a bunch of anecdotes without any analytical value.
So it's just comments?
It's just comments, right? And they're anonymous comments, so you can't go to John and say, John, why are you feeling bad? You're not getting intelligence. By asking teams what's going on and doing it as a collective activity, when they're talking about me as the team, we as the team within an organisation, work, obviously the tasks they're doing, play is still about how does the team find creativity, joy, growth. So those domains apply, but you can ask the team, how are we going? Are we so occupied with the work of the team that we're forgetting what we're trying to achieve for the company? Right? Managers then have a series of identifiers. They can look at what are those activities that are occupying the team in each domain, and the manager can say, that actually doesn't have a lot of value, or it's getting in the way.
So let's change it. Yeah.
Change it up.
So what I'm hearing here is actually really powerful, in as much as you're getting a team language, and we know anthropologically that language is the conveyor of culture, so you can actually develop a team culture.
It's a great way to underpin team culture, even down to that, what do we call it, not mnemonics, I'll think of the right word, but there's shortcuts in the language.
Yes.
So in one of the teams, I overheard this conversation, and someone was saying, gee, my me space is feeling really down this week. I think I'm going to need some alone time. Right? Time to do what they needed to do to get in the right headspace for their work with the team.
That absolutely requires culture, because to say that, there's got to be that trust, and there's got to be the common language.
And other people knew what he was talking about.
And that's what I mean. Not a common
Yeah.
language like English, a common language of this me, we, work, play language.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We're at the moment in an Asian university, so we're in Phnom Penh, Cambodia at PSBU. How does this model transfer across cultures?
Look, it's not a prescription, and it's non-judgmental, and again, it's situational. So, for example, in collectivist cultures, they value more things about how you relate to the community, how you relate to, the environment, and it's much less about individual successes, individual activities, what we're doing for we. Yes. So you're going to find typically less occupation in the me space, more in the we space, more in the workspace. And in that environment, again, as long as it aligns to your personal values, you should be able to say, my life is balanced.
Right, okay.
In hyper-competitive cultures, and we see a lot of those, a lot of Western cultures look this way, that values success of the individual above everything else. Yes. And therefore you're more likely to see that the work domain occupies everything. Yes. It's all about chasing my success.
As opposed to our community success.
Absolutely. And even in those, we will think that there's a great individuality in those hyper-competitive cultures, but very little population in the me space. It's not about growth, it's about achievement, and that's about work. Again, effort for some kind of direct benefit. So
the model then, looking at the model, regardless of the culture, the model can fit and no one's penalised by it.
No. Again, it's non-judgmental. And it's a conversation you're having with yourself about your life. Right? It's where am I? What's occupying me? Do I feel with my goals and my values here and now, is this good? And again, key premise, a different premise. Balance is not a quality. Balance is about finding alignment with your life. Right? Really important. This is really important. When you talk about anyone about work-life balance, you're missing so much. It's about balance in your life.
Okay. So, Tony, any final thoughts for people out there who are maybe feeling out of balance, unbalanced, and are there things they can do today?
Yeah, look, take a look. Have an honest conversation with yourself. Right? Do that today. Ask in each quadrant, what's occupying me? Be honest. Again, rate those quadrants and think about, does it align with my values? Am I going somewhere that looks like it's permanently bad behaviour? Is this a phase that I'm going through? Am I going to get what I want through what I'm doing now? And if you are, you're balanced. If you're not, this will help you to identify some real tactics for change.
Yes.
It's like a spotlight, right? This isn't going to solve your problem, but it will illuminate what's going on and help you find some tactics for change.
I love that, because it's not about doing it all. It's about identifying and small steps. So the spotlight, for want of your words, the spotlight can now look at that, you can focus on it and say, right, I'm going to try and change that. Not everything, but that one to start with.
Sure.
Okay. I think there's a lot of value in that, and it's so simple that people could discount it for being simple. But I think, especially for our audience, there's a lot of students out there, and there's a lot of pressure. You have pressures from above and below. You have pressures from your family. You have pressures from your classmates. You have pressures from professors. You have trying to balance your social life and your academic life and your family life. There's a lot of pressure there. And maybe this kind of a philosophy or this model can help you achieve more balance as far as your life is concerned.
Yeah, I agree. And don't shy away from the simplicity. If we try and do everything, if we try and add more quadrants, I'm sure there are ways people could think about dissecting it further. It just becomes harder to have a look at. The basic premise, I believe, obviously about this model, me, we, work, play, they're simple domains that everyone can get their head around, no matter what culture you live in, no matter what's going on in your life. It should resonate, and it should be simple to have a look.
Tony, again,
thank you,
a
Karl.
pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope this episode of Balance gives you a sense of better balance and maybe a little bit of where your week next week is better than your week this week. Thank you very much. This was Coffee with Karl. And to our viewers, thank you for watching. Think big, stay curious, and don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. I'm Karl Meneghella, and this has been Coffee with Karl. Until our next episode, keep learning. Thank you. So that's a wrap for Season 1, Coffee with Karl. I've certainly enjoyed the opportunity to facilitate these discussions with our visiting experts, both from Cambodia and internationally. We've covered a range of diverse topics, including things like internationalisation, AI in education, trying to achieve a sense of balance, looking even at the history of coffee conversations. Season 2 promises to be very exciting. I look forward to having you join us with Coffee with Karl in Season 2. Thank you.